Okay, I've come to the end of the top of my bag, and you can see it's really starting to kind of curl in, which is what I want. And now we're going to work along the sides. So remember, we have those 2 stitch markers down here. So we are going to go back to working half double crochets. Okay, but I am going to add some decreasing in the side now, because the look I want of my bag is to start bunching in the sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over, and we're going to go back into the base of that last stitch there. Okay, and that's going to help us go around the corner here. So just pull through. It might be a little snug. There we go. So see how it's coming around the corner here? So now we actually will have stitches to work into. So what I want to do here is I want to decrease into every 5th stitch along the side using half double crochet stitches. So I'm not going to count this one in the corner because it's coming around the bend here. So I'm going to start counting my first stitch, and then my second, third, and fourth. And remember, we're decreasing in every 5th. So on the sides, you're going to have 4 stitches along the side, and then you're going to decrease into the 5th. So that means we're going to yarn over, insert into that stitch, and pull through, but we're not going to resolve it. We're going to yarn over again and go into the very next stitch, pull through. So that's going to give us 5 loops on our hook, which is fine. You're going to yarn over and then gently pull through all of those loops, and that's going to gather that stitch together. Now, don't worry about these little gaps here. As you continue to work a few more rows, that will just close in. Now, you may want to do a liner with your bag, and in that case, then you're not going to worry about that at all. Okay, so you're going to continue all the way down doing the same thing. You're going to do 4 half double crochets, a decrease, 4 half double crochets, a decrease, until you get to this stitch marker here. Okay. Okay, so I've just done my last 4 half double crochets, which takes me right to that stitch marker. So remember, that's the bottom corner of my bag. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take that out for a second, is I'm going to decrease this corner with the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to yarn over, go into that stitch and pull through. I'm going to yarn over and go into the very next stitch. Yarn over and pull through, and then I'm going to gingerly pull through all of those loops. And so now what I want to do is I really want to close in the corner, and I'm trying to slowly bring these sides together, and you'll see what I mean as we go along. So I'm just going to replace that stitch marker back in there so I don't forget. And now I'm not going to do any decreases between. Once I've done my first decrease, I'm just going to go straight across until I hit the next stitch marker, or just before it. So the number of stitches between the stitch markers will decrease as I cinch in the bottom. So that's 1. That is 2. And that is 3. Now remember, we had 5 stitches between these stitch markers. One of them I've decreased already. So technically we would have done 4, and this is the 5th one. Now this is the one I want to decrease with the stitch marker. So I'm going to take that out. Because remember, the ones we're decreasing are in between the stitch markers. So I didn't wait until I got to the stitch marker. I had to do it with the one before to keep things even. So I'm going to insert, pull through, yarn over, insert again, and pull through. And this is my corner decrease here, okay? And then I want to make sure that I put that stitch marker right back in so I don't forget where I am. So you can see that that space is decreasing there, which is what we want. Now we're going to continue back up the side doing the same thing we did along the other side. So we are going to half double crochet 4, 1, and remember I'm using 2 strands, so I want to be careful to catch both of them. 2, and to the next one is 3. Now I have 4, and I'm going to decrease into the next one. Okay, so insert, pull through, yarn over into the next one, insert, pull through. Okay, and then we yarn over and pull through all of them. Okay, so if I show you, let me just pull that up for a second. So you can see that the bottom end of my bag is really curling inward, which is exactly what I want. Eventually I'm going to cinch this up. But see, it's creating this little bunched in look on the side, which is exactly the look I am going for. And hopefully once we get further along, you'll see how this is working out. So you're going to go ahead and do that all the way around. So you're going to continue on, decreasing along the sides in every 5th stitch. Once you get to this next top lip of the bag, you're going to go back to single crochets, and we're going to decrease into every 6th stitch. Remember, that means that you will do 5 single crochets and then decrease stitch 6 and 7. 5 single crochets, decrease 6 and 7. Okay, so make sure you finish going up along the side, go around the top with single crochets with their decreases, and then back down the other side with half double crochets. So you will have done another full round all the way around the edges of your bag, and I will meet you to take you on to the next round of your edge. Okay, so we finished our second round all the way around the edges. We're back up to the top of the opening of what's going to be our bag here, but we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of the typical single crochets, we are going to now revert to double crochets. So we are going to chain 3 here to give us the height of a double crochet stitch, and into the very next stitch, which is this one here, we are going to double crochet into that. And we are creating the design of the top of our bag at this point, okay? So what we will do now is we're going to do 1 more double crochet into the very next stitch here. And then we are going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then we will skip 3. Okay. And 1, 2, 3, and into this 4th one, we will then double crochet. So we're going to create some little eyelets here, I like to call them. Okay, so it's going to give us a little bit of a gap there. Okay, then we double crochet into the very next stitch. And we're going to double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So you will have 5 double crochets in total. So you will have something that looks like this. Then we chain 3 again, 1, 2, and 3. We will skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th one, we will do a double crochet and then do an additional 4. So that way we have a chain space of 3 stitches followed by 5 stitches of double crochets. And we're going to do this all the way to the end of the top part of our bag here. Okay, we're coming up to the end here. Now this time I only chained 2 based on how many stitches I had left here. Obviously I had miscalculated, even though I counted several times, but no worries, this is the beauty of crochet. We can just mix it up and adjust what we're doing. So instead of chain 3 at the end, I chained 2. I'm only going to skip 2 and just do my usual double crochet. And I'm going to have one more stitch there. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to do one more double crochet into the base of that because we are going to go down the side again. Okay, so then the top of our bag will look something like this. So we've got these nice big gaps in there. Okay, so now we're going to go down the side of our bag and we're going to go back down to half double crochets. So we're going to yarn over, and into the very next stitch you're going to do a half double crochet. Now previously we had been decreasing in every 5th stitch. Now we're going to continue decreasing. We're going to do it into every 4th stitch. So that means we are going to do 3 half double crochets in a row. So this is our 3rd one here. Okay, so that was 1, 2, and 3. And now into the 4th and into the 5th, we are going to bring these 2 stitches together. Okay, so you can see how they end up being nice and snug. So we'll do that again. We have 1 half double crochet. So you will yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over to pull through. You'll have 3 loops, yarn over and pull through. So that's our 2nd one. Here's our 3rd. And here comes our decrease. You'll yarn over as usual, insert, pull through. You'll have the 3 loops. Do not resolve the stitch. You yarn over again as if you're going to do another one. You go into the next stitch, pull through, and then we yarn over and pull through all 5 of these loops. And you want to be really ginger about this because it's easy to catch all those loops on the way in. So that's what we're going to do. And you're going to keep doing that all the way back down to our stitch marker, which we're not far from now. And remember that when we hit the first stitch marker, we're going to decrease from the marker in to the next stitch. Okay, but go ahead and finish this and then I will meet you here and take you through that again. So I came up to the end and it turns out that I need one more stitch here before my decrease. So that's just what I'm going to do. So instead of 3, I have 4 at the end. Okay. And so you can really see that it's kind of curling in on the sides, and that's the design that I want for this bag. Okay, so it's really kind of curving inward. I'm where my stitch marker is, so I'm going to decrease because this is the bottom corner of my bag. So I'm just going to pop this out here. Oops. And I'm going to insert my hook, pull through, and then go into the very next stitch. Insert and pull through, and then pull through all of them. Okay, so that's going to give me a nice decrease there. I will now replace my stitch marker back in there. Oops, can be kind of, these are actually very terrible stitch markers, but it's what I've got on hand right now, but you can use anything, safety pins, bobby pins, there we go. Okay, now the second stitch marker will get decreased with the stitch on the inside. So between these 2 stitch markers, that's where the decrease takes place. So I need to save this for the decrease. So I actually have only one more stitch. I just do a regular stitch into that one on its own. And I know it might be getting, whoops, kind of very snug to see what's really going on here. But see, that's the bottom of the bag. And you can see that it's curling up. I'm going to take my hook out in a second. Okay, we now are going to decrease the next 2 stitches together. I'm just going to take that stitch marker out. We'll yarn over, insert, and pull through like a regular half double. Now I'm going to yarn over, insert into the next one, which is where our stitch marker was, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 5. And there we go. So now our stitch markers, as you can see, are getting closer and closer together. And in fact, in the next round, these 2 are just going to close right up together. So, but we'll take you through there when we get there. Okay, so now we're going back up the other side of the edge here. So we are going to continue on by doing 3 half double crochets in a row. That's 1, 2, 3, and here is our, whoops, that's what you got to be careful of. And here is our decrease. So we'll yarn over, insert, pull through, yarn over again, insert into the next one, and pull through. Okay, so you're just going to keep doing that all the way up the side of this edge here. And then we're going to pick back up with doing these eyelets the same we did over here. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do that, but I'm going to pull the hook out here for a second because I want to give you a little visual of how this is taking shape. So I'm just going to pull that up here. Okay, and so if I fold this over like this, so see how these edges are curling in? So there we go. So you can really kind of see it's taking on this almost like a triangular shape. Or I think it's called a trapezoid. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've done my shapes. But see how that's curving in like that? I actually want that to happen. Okay, so it's just going to give it a nice little shape here. And so if you look at it from the side profile, so this is the bottom. Okay, and so by putting these decreases in the corner, see, it's caused it to kind of shape up there. There we go. So you can really see that that's kind of taking a really cool form. Okay, and then it's going to meet at the top here. Okay, so again, if I turn the side profile here, so now it's creating a nice side. So it's closing itself in a way. Now some people would have just left it like a flat square and just done a nice easy seam up the side. Totally cool and fine and no problem. But I just, I was doing some kind of thinking and experimenting, and I just really like the idea of doing something slightly different. So now you can see that the bag, see as it's these decreases are causing it to curl inward. The bag's actually going to have a bit of an actual side to it. Okay, so there we go. So you can see that it's curving in, and then these eyelets, I have a plan for these, which I'll let you guys know once we get there. Okay, so just go ahead and finish the edge here. So you do your decreases as we've been doing. You're going to do the eyelets up at the top here, just like I did on this side, and then you're going to do your decreases back down along this side here. If you are stuck or a little bit confused, just pause the video and just back up a bit to when we started doing this. Okay, and I will meet you when you're finished this round to do the next round. Okay guys, I love how this is coming together. So I finished doing my last set of increases along the side. So you can see on each bottom, there's only going to be one stitch in between each stitch marker on each side here. Okay, if you've done the decreases correctly. Now, I just want to address something. In these top corners, I know it's probably getting to be really kind of wonky, and you're thinking, how is this thing going to turn out? So just have a little bit of faith, And again, because this styling, I wanted it to curl in, it's actually going perfectly according to plan. So yes, it will bubble up here in the corners, but because I actually don't want to do any decreases on the top anymore, where did I do that? Yeah, I want you to see here. So what I did is I actually added a couple of increases in that corner, because remember, when we want to keep something flat, we have to add some extra stitches in the corner to round it out. So you'll notice here that once I finished my half double crochets, into the same stitch I inserted a double crochet, so it kind of gradually gave me the height. I didn't need to chain 3 at this point. And I did yet actually another 2 double crochets into that stitch. So see, it just kind of allows it to bend that corner gently without creating too much more of a bubble inward, okay? Because that one is okay, but I didn't want it to do too much. So there we have it. And see, that's exactly what I did here too. So guys, you know, figure out what works best for you, what you like, what the look is that you like best. So this is, you know, these projects are projects that, you know, I've thought about. I kind of work out the design in which way that, you know, aesthetically is pleasing to me. But this is the beauty of working on stuff like that, is sometimes you will adjust how you do it, and then might find something that you really like. But in the meantime, if you stick to this, it will turn out as planned. So see, now this is now the top of the bag. So this would be your top opening, okay? And that's the shape it's going to take. And now we're rounding out the sides. So we are going to do another round of decreases along the side. Okay, so we are now no longer going to decrease along the top of your bag. So see, I've come all the way back around. So what we're going to do here, and I'm just going to adjust down, is along the top, we're just simply going to do 1 half double crochet into each stitch. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that in the gaps here. So I'm going to yarn over. And see how I've finished my side here, the half double crochets. I'm going to come around the bend here. So I'm actually going to go back into that same stitch and pull through. It's going to be a little snug. That was my original chain 3. I no longer need to do that really, okay? Because I'm going to use another stitch to come up around the bend. So I'm happy with that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the very next stitch, which is right there. So that's the top of that double crochet. And we're going to do all half double crochets now, okay? And we're going to do that into the next stitch. So the top of your bag is all half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. Now, when we come to the gap here, this all depends on the look that you want. So you can certainly go into the stitch like that. So you can work into the chain stitches. So there were 3 chains, so you want to make sure you work into them. Okay, and then into this last one. Make sure that it is this last one, because it could be easy to confuse it with the double crochet stitch, which is right there. That's the top of that stitch. Okay, so you get a look that looks like that, and that looks really uniform and very nice. All right. Then you would continue on into 1 into each of the next 5 stitches, I guess. So these are going to be a little easier to identify because you're actually working into the top of a stitch. Okay. And now in this next space, I'm going to show you the other option you can do. So this was working right into the stitch, and the other option is working into the space. So I know there's 3 chains, so I'm going to work 3 half double crochets into the space. Okay, and some people find it a little easier because you don't have to fight with the chain stitch. But then make sure that once you go into your next stitch, you do find the very top of this double crochet and insert there. So let's compare the two here. Okay, so this is done into the spaces, and this is done into the chain stitches. So similar, but just slightly different look. And in a few bags in the past, I've actually done this method. But because I want to create a little bit more of a seamless look for this particular project, I'm actually going to work into each of the chain stitches in each gap. So this is the method I'm going to stick with, but this is also another option, and it looks just as fine. It's your preference. So into the space, into the stitch. So you decide. In the meantime, I am going to continue with this method, so I'm just going to pull that out. And I'm going to continue going all the way to the edge here, and then we'll continue on and discuss the next set of decreases. So I'll meet you guys back here in a few minutes. And here we are. I've come to the end here of the first top edge. And so as you can see, my eyelets are now sitting quite nicely. And I'm going down the side to do one more round of decreases on the side here. So previously we had done a decrease in every fourth stitch. And now what's going to happen is we're going to do one in every third stitch. So as you can see, I just did a few in this corner here to come around the bend. Okay, so I actually did 3 stitches here, but now I'm going to officially start going down the side. So I'm going to do 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2. And now I'm going to decrease the third and the fourth together. So I'm going to yarn over and insert, do not resolve, and go into the next one. And then yarn over and pull through all 5 as usual. So this is what we're going to do now down the sides of the bag. And then we're going to talk about what's going to happen when you get to the bottom there with your stitch markers. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you there. And I'm coming up close to my first stitch marker here, and it calls for me to do a decrease next because I've just done 2 individual stitches in a row, so now I'm going to decrease. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the next 2 stitches and I'm going to decrease. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, see how we have our 2 stitch markers are pretty close together with 1 stitch in the middle? I am actually just going to skip that stitch in the middle, and I'm going to bring these 2 together. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm actually going to skip this one, and I'm going to go into the next one. So I'm basically going into the ones that had the stitch markers. Okay, yarn over, and I'm going to pull through all of those loops. So now what's happened is, whoops, I've basically closed up the bottom of my bag. So remember this section of single crochets, see how it's going to, hopefully you can see that. So now it should help it kind of sit more. It'll have more of a defined bottom of the bag. Pretty cool. Okay, so now we no longer need to worry about the stitch markers on that side because we've brought the two corners together, so to speak. Whoops. Okay, and so now I'm just going to continue up the other side with my usual decreases that I've been doing this far. I'm going to do 1 half double crochet. Okay, and whoops. And then I'm going to do a second one. And then I'm going to decrease the third and the fourth together. Okay, so that's what you're going to do now all the way up the other side. 2 half double crochets, decrease in the third, 2 half double crochets, decrease in the third. When you come up to the top half here, just like what we did on this side, we're going to just solidify where we've created those eyelets there, okay? So when you come around the bend here, see, you can see clearly that I've done an increase here just to smooth out coming around that corner. So right about, so see how there's, I guess it looks like 4 stitches, yeah. Right about here in the center, I will do some increases here, probably a similar thing. I might do 3 or 4 stitches depending on how much of a bend it needs. And then I will continue on and simply half double crochet 1 into each stitch, including going into these chain stitches, okay? Including going into each of these chain stitches. So there's 3 chains here, so I'm going to make sure I do 3 half double crochets, making sure not to miss the very top of this double crochet here. And that's what I'm going to do all the way across. And then I'm going to go down the side. Again, do the increases where you feel you need, depending on how you're liking the look of it. Then we'll go back to doing our decreases in every third stitch, and you're going to do the same thing we did here. Once you get to these 2 stitch markers, don't worry about this stitch in the middle. You will begin a half double crochet here and then skip right to the next stitch marker and stitch those 2 together, and you can get rid of your stitch markers. Then you'll continue all the way up, and I will meet you once we get here, and we can start having discussions about how to finally seal up all of our sides together. Super exciting. So continue on with your 2 half doubles and decrease. Okay guys, just one more thing. I realize that sometimes people really need that visual again. So I'm coming up to the corner. So just want to show you again how I round it out. So I've just done my decrease, and then I've done a half double crochet and a half double crochet into the next stitch. You can see I've come up to my little corner area where I increased, and actually it worked out perfectly because that's pretty much the corner there. So that's where I'm going to put an increase here, so as opposed to a decrease. Okay, so I'm going to do my half double crochet as usual. I'm going to do another one into that, and that's usually a typical increase when we do 2 into 1. So now what you're going to do is you're just going to gauge how you are feeling about how it's coming up around the bend. So for me, I feel like I want to do 1 more here. Yeah, see, I feel a bit better about that. See how it's just sitting nicely, and so now when I go into the very next stitch, it should not pull or buckle. Yeah, so now I'm going to just go along the top as we discussed, doing 1 half double crochet into each stitch across the top. So yeah, I like how that looks. It sits nice and flat, and again, make sure to really pay attention to these chains and go right into each stitch. Okay, so hopefully that clarified that a little bit for you, and I'll meet you at the end of this full round. Okay guys, so this bag is now taking its shape. So you should have something that looks like this. I've just come up around the side here with my decreases, and if I just kind of fluff this out, you can see that the sides are starting to round out, which is fantastic. Okay, so really your bag is almost like, I guess you could see it as a cone type, not a cone, a cylinder, I should say, cylinder type shape. So if I come around here to this side, so this is now the side forming of your bag. So it's at this point now that I'm actually going to cinch one of the sides in and close it off, and then I'm going to come around to the other side oops, sorry, I'm going to actually start on this side. So I'm now finished doing kind of the whole circular action. And so I'm going to snip that in, and then we're going to close off this side. We'll close off the other side, then we'll get going on some straps. So I love how this is turning out. This Alpine stitch is so pretty. All right, so what we need to do is we need to align these top two corners, so to speak. And I would love to tell you that I have an exact perfect formula of how to do this, but you're probably going to laugh when I show you. I am what I call eyeballing it. And the reason is a lot of times coming up around the bend here, even with the best of intentions, you could be off by a stitch or two. So what I'm going to do here is see how I've aligned my eyelets here. And I've made sure, because I did count initially when we were forming this bag. Let me just get this out of the way here. I made sure for the most part that these eyelets lined up. Okay, so if I kind of go around the way here, and then when I come to the edge here, see, it lines up beautifully. So keeping that in mind, when I've lined up the very first eyelet here, so that means I have 1, 2, 3 stitches here. I know it's lined up beautifully there, so that's my first double crochet. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line each one up here so that they're matching, and I can see that this is the stitch that I would like to slip stitch into, and that is now going to close up the first side of our bag. So keeping that in mind, this is the one I'm going to go into. So I'm going to go right into the full stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch these two sides together. Okay, so see, now we're closing off the side. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to continue to work in the round just on this side until I've closed up this side. And I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do that right now. And I just need to get back in there. Okay, so once I've slip stitched in there, I am going to continue on decreasing. So what we want to do is we actually want to close this gap, right? So I am going to chain 1 and into the next stitch, if I can remember which one it is. So see, that's a stitch we just worked in. I am actually going to stitch right underneath that a half double crochet right into the bottom of that. And for me, I like doing that because it just gives it more of a solidified attachment. Okay, so in the previous round we were decreasing in every third stitch. Okay, so we are going to continue to do that for one more round. So I've just done one. We're going to do our second half double crochet. So we're going to decrease the next stitch. So yarn over, pull through with a loop, yarn over, go into the next stitch to pull through. We should have 5 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all of them. Okay, then again 2 half double crochets. Careful here because you are working with 2 yarns, so we want to make sure that we pull through all of them. Another half double crochet and a decrease. Okay, so you're going to do that all the way around till we come back to this beginning here again. Okay, so I'm coming up to my last decrease here of the side of the bag, and I have one more stitch left, so that's just a regular double crochet, and that's fine. Whoops. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to slip stitch into the top of this first one here. Okay, and again, this is just, there we go. See, now we've got, it's definitely becoming much more solid. Okay, so, and hopefully you are seeing that your opening is closing up on the side there. We're going to continue going, and this next round we are going to decrease into every second stitch. So we'll begin the same, chain 1, yarn over, and back into that same stitch I slip stitched into. I'm going to do, oops, 1 half double crochet, and this time I'm going to decrease into the very next stitch, which is right here, and then the one next to it. So I'm bringing these two together. Okay, so I have 1 regular stitch and 1 decrease, and that is going to be the pattern all the way around this circle until you get back to the beginning again. Again, I'm coming up to the end of my circle. It's getting much tighter. Okay, so your work should look something like this. Okay, I'm going to do the last one here is the regular half double crochet. And then, of course, I am going to slip stitch to the top of the first stitch I started off with. I'm going to have to finagle in there. And some of you may be saying, well, how many stitches? How many stitches? And I apologize for that. I hadn't counted before, but this pattern or formula will work no matter how many stitches you have, the way to decrease. So for example, in the last one, I decreased every second stitch. So if you do that consistently, no matter how many stitches you have, you should be decreasing evenly. Okay, so in this case now, after the second round of decreasing every second stitch, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 stitches altogether. Okay, you might have 18, you might have 16. It's not the end of the world. The goal is that you want your work to look like this. Okay, so we're almost done closing up our side here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do another round where we're decreasing every stitch. Okay, so here's what that means. So I slip stitched there. Now it's starting to get awkward to work with because it has a shape now. So again, I will chain 1, and then I am going to, not only am I going to half double crochet, but I am going to decrease it right away. So I went into the base of the same stitch and now into the next stitch. I am going to, and of course I didn't yarn over. Yeah, so you always want to make sure for those decreases you have 5 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through all of them. Okay, and now I'm just going to keep decreasing. So every stitch is a decrease. So I pull through one, pull through the next one, and these two are going to get brought together. Okay, again, insert, and then the next one, and these two are brought together. So you see what's happening? So it should close up your hole almost entirely, okay? So I will meet you at the end here. So keep decreasing every stitch. Come to the end here, I'm probably going to have one stitch, and I'm no longer going to slip stitch this time. I'm actually going to continue. So I've just done a decrease there. Okay, so see how much closed off that's going to be. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep decreasing another round, and that should fairly cinch it in tightly. I'm just going to do that with you. Okay, so I'm going to continue going around. So the circle's now getting a bit tighter. So into the next stitch is right there, and into the very next one. Decrease, and it's now getting tight, which is great. It's what we want, but it just makes it very awkward to work into. Okay, and got another decrease. Next stitch. And so sometimes you might just want to pull this up to see where you are. Okay, so I'm just coming around the bottom. That is perfect. So I'm going to keep going. Oops. So I'm going to go into the next stitch, which is this one. And then the next stitch, which is, oops, oh my. Okay, so we just went into this one, so we need to go into that one. It's getting cozy. And then pull through, and just might want to relax your stitches a little bit there so you can actually pull your yarn through. Okay, so you can see now, hopefully, that your opening is just about closed. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, because I am actually going to start our strap now. Okay, so I just want to lay this here so you can see the side of our bag has now got this cool round effect, and we've pretty much closed off the side there. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to work our way up here to work the strap across, and then we are going to rejoin on this side and do the decreases, and then we will be done our bag, believe it or not. Okay, so you're thinking, how the heck is this going to work? So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to place my hook underneath this time. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over. I know it's going to be a bit awkward. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to pull through basically like a slip stitch. See that? Closes it right off. And so what I'm going to do here is I am going to chain one, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the side of one of these stitches here, and you can be anywhere. It's basically what I'm doing is I'm just closing off the side there, and I'm just working my way up here. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want to cut off my yarn. The least amount of ends I can sew in, the better. And in fact, I don't think we've cut off our yarn at all in this project, which is great. So I'm going to then continue to find, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to find little gaps that I can close in there. So I yarn over and I just slip stitch, and I keep it fairly loose. I don't want it to be an obvious seam. See? So, and then I'm going to come maybe through here, and just slip stitch my way through there, and relax that stitch there, and I'm going to go up through the side here, and you can determine, you know, how many of these you want to do depending on visually what's pleasing to you. I'm just trying to make my way up to this edge here, and then I'm going to go through here, and be careful not to knot up your, there we go. So if I just pull this up for a second, the side of your bag now looks like this, okay? So if I take my bag and I hold it up, so see, it now has a shape. It's going to sit. So this is the side of the bag. So it's now taken on a rounded shape, and I just love how that came out. And the puffiness around it, super cute. And then I want to, I'm probably going to slip stitch once more so I can get a little closer to the top edge of my bag. So maybe I'm going to go right through here. And you don't want to be too tight because you'll get stuck, right? Okay, great. So now what I'm going to do here, you can see that, is I am going to chain one really loosely, and now I am going to do 4 slip stitches across the edge here. I want to make sure it's even, so see how that bends naturally. Again, I'm going to line that up, and the idea is I want to have 2 slip stitches on this side and 2 on this side. So I am going to go ahead and start right through there, and I'm going to slip stitch. Whoops, it's a bit testy. So that's the first slip stitch, but here's what's going to be different.